Hey everyone, Callum from Cagefront here. Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. Now, I'm sorry that this video is coming out a bit late. That was because I highly underestimated the last hot take video I did, which is the best signings that the UFC can make in every single division. So I highly recommend you check that one out. Now, we have the predictions for UFC 309, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Finally, we are getting this fight. And not only that, we have the Conor Mcgregor'esk Mauricio Ruffy out of the Fighting Nerds looking for another highlight reel finish. We have absolute certified chaos with Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler fighting against each other for the co-main event. And then of course we have Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic in the main event, with both of them aiming for double retirement status, let's be honest here. So I'm going to be breaking down, predicting every single matchup in this video, telling you who will win each fight, and I will also be predicting and breaking down all the best moments that this card will give us. So let's get into the first fight of Veronica versus Eduarda Moura at flyweight, and I point this out because Eduarda Moura has just moved up from strawweight. Now, there are pros and cons, and it's very much a big deal when it comes to this matchup, because the cons are that Eduarda Moura is not going to be able to just bully fighters like she did in strawweight. She was a very, very big strawweight. And the issue from the last fight is that she was missing weight. She missed weight by ½ pound against Diniz Gomes, and she obviously lost that fight as well, being the first loss of her career. So she has moved up to a more natural weight class, and that is the pro. She's not going to be as drained. Her cardio is going to be a lot better. So it's really up to that point. Now, Veronica Hardy is very good. I really do like her, and I really want her to win this fight. She's got great movement on the outside, very nice hand speed, and she is ultimately the better striker here, but she's not the biggest flyweight, and that's where Eduarda Moura is just going to find a lot more pros within this matchup. And I honestly just think that she is too big, she's too strong, she's also hungry from that loss from Diniz Gomes, and she's also a very relevant, prevalent finisher as well. So she's going to try and cut off Hardy, because Hardy is very good on the outside, sticking the jab, moving in and out, side to side. Moura is just going to use that physical presence to cut Hardy off and then get into the clinch, because the problem is Hardy is not going to be able to outmuscle Moura in the clinch. And if this fight gets to the ground, Moura is just going to be able to have a very, very good day at the office. She is on the feet weaker. I mean, she's just a weaker striker overall. She doesn't have the tools. She has better accuracy, but not the tools there against someone like Veronica Hardy. So she needs to get this to the ground, which she 100% without a doubt will try to. Now, Veronica Hardy is just going to have to really keep this on the feet as best she can, strike along the outside, just really try and win this on volume. Would not be trying to go for the absolute finish in this fight, because if she overextends, gets her back taken, she's in a lot of trouble. Now, Eduarda Moura in 15 minutes, having a rejuvenated cardio base from moving up to her natural weight class, I think in the 15 minutes she is going to be able to get this fight to the ground. And honestly, I do think that she is going to be able to find a submission here, more so probably around round 2. Before, if it does come to it in the 3rd round, before she gasses, I think she's going to be really pushing for that submission straight out of the gate. I think Hardy will do a very good job of keeping her off her in that 1st round, but Moura will get it to the ground in the 2nd round, and then I think she will find that rear naked choke finish. And moving up the card to Oban Elliott versus Bassil Hafez. Now, this is an interesting matchup because Bassil Hafez, he is a very explosive guy. He's very durable. His gas tank is definitely suspicious, but we have seen him almost beat Jack Della Maddalena, took that fight to a split decision, then almost lose to Gall. So it's very hard to dictate just how good he's going to be in the fight. But the difference is that he struggled against a Gall who is good with his ground game. He's a primary submission-based fighter. Now, looking at JDM, he is just a natural striker, doesn't have that actual wrestling base, and JDM does have holes when it comes to the wrestling. Now, going up against someone like Oban Elliott, Oban Elliott is just a better McGhee Gall at this point. Yes, he doesn't have like the best submission game of all time, but his counter wrestling is going to be a killer in this fight. Hafez has to get this fight to the ground because Oban Elliott, yes, he's not the greatest on the feet, but seriously, his cardio is a lot better, and that is where Hafez is going to struggle. Moving through this fight, through to the second to the third round, Hafez trying to shoot, trying to get this fight to the ground is going to be difficult because Elliott is just so good at making sure he can scoop underhooks and not get taken down. I mean, you look at his fight against Preston Parsons, who is arguably as good as Hafez or even better in the wrestling department, and could pretty much never get Oban Elliott down in that fight. Oban Elliott's takedown defense was flawless. He looked fantastic. If he carries this into this fight, stylistically, Hafez is going to have a lot of issues. Now, in the first round, Hafez could definitely find some success because he is just the guy, the fighter with the bigger presence. You know, he's very big, very tanky, and yes, he's got one KO TKO on his record, but if he bum rushes, and with that, just at that stature that he has, he can knock someone out. And if he finds Oban Elliott's chin, he could take him out. There is 100% a chance there. His best chance by far is that first round. And if Hafez does not get this done in that first round, I'm going to be taking Oban Elliott. I think Oban Elliott just moving through the second and third round, stuffing the takedowns, drawing out Hafez's gas tank, and overtaking with the volume striking. He is going to be getting this one done by a pretty clear decision for me. 30-27, or if Hafez gets off to a good start, 29-28 to Oban Elliott here. And moving up the card to Ramiz Brahimaj versus McGhee Gall. Now, this is another interesting one, just like the last fight, but it is very tricky because both of these guys are stylistically pretty much mirrored. I mean, both of them have never been submitted. They are both pretty horse shit on the feet. And they have both just not had a great time in the UFC, let's be honest here. I mean, McGhee Gall, he was a guy that fought CM Punk and was supposed to be the next big thing, and now he's 7-6. And then Ramiz Brahimaj, understandably, he has had like spinal surgery and everything. He's been out for a while, but we can't take away from the fact that both of these guys are very, very high level grappling based fighters. Now, that stylistically against each other, they could easily cancel each other out. So I wouldn't be surprised there if we just don't really see much of a ground game and we see a fairly sloppy stand-up fight. And I honestly do think that that's where it's going to happen. But basing off their last fights, Ramiz Brahimaj got dominated by Garimbo. I mean, he is the shorter fighter in this matchup as well. Just less reach, shorter fighter. He doesn't have as bigger, just dominant presence in there against McGhee Gall. And McGhee Gall, he is just a bigger fighter. I mean, he's just got the size, he's got the reach, and against Hafez in his last fight, he really did impress, in all honesty. He was using a nice jab, he was using his striking to his advantage, and he almost won that fight. Going from almost beating JDM to almost losing to McGhee Gall for Hafez is crazy, is honestly crazy when you look at them both in the rankings. McGhee Gall ranked 108th around about there to JDM, who's basically top 5 fighter. I mean, it is crazy. And that's why I honestly think McGhee Gall in this matchup, I think he can take it by a decision here. I don't see submissions happening. I don't see a KO TKO here. I'd be very surprised by that. Neither of them have finished anyone in their careers by a KO TKO, and I don't think it's going to happen here. And honestly, I think McGhee Gall is just going to be able to take this one by honestly probably a 30-27. I think his striking is just a bit cleaner. He's got the range to just make sure that he can keep Brahimaj away and utilize that jab, just pick up the pace with the volume round after round, and then he just takes a fairly clean but pretty boring decision here. I hope we do get some grappling matchup here, because ultimately, especially for Brahimaj, because I would arguably say he's better in the submission department. I mean, the stats do speak for itself as well, but it's going to be interesting to see, and I do think they'll cancel each other out, and Gall will get the decision win here. Moving up the card to Marcin Tybura versus Jhonata Diniz. Now, this is a massive fight for Jhonata Diniz. Being in the 20 ranks moving straight, not even into the top 15. He can move into the top 10 off a win here. And granted, I think that this is a completely fair fight to make for him because he is just entertaining. He is honestly probably the most entertaining fighter outside the rankings, and these are the type of fighters that they desperately need in that heavyweight division because it's just looking like shit, realistically. It's just not moving well. Like Jhonata Diniz not having the best ground game in the world, but having that really credible striking arsenal that he has with the kickboxing pedigree that he does have, he will make fights entertaining, and he has done so far. But fighting against someone like Marcin Tybura is just not going to be a walk in the park. No way. Marcin Tybura has fought some of the best in the best. I mean, he didn't have a great performance last time against Spivak. He got submitted for the first time, but Jhonata Diniz and Spivak are completely different in terms of MMA experience. Spivak is without a doubt a top 10 fighter. He's fought very good opposition. Now, Jhonata Diniz, he hasn't. I mean, Carl Williams is a good fighter, definitely, but Austin Lane is not. So it's kind of arguable within that. He doesn't have the greatest resume, but in terms of the striking, I am definitely going to be favoring him here without a doubt, and that is amplified by Marcin Tybura's age as well and just the amount of damage that he's taken overall. Now, Diniz either finishes him early, KO TKOs him in the first round brutally, or Tybura either gets him to the ground straight away or pushes it through to the later rounds, gets him down and submits him. Now, what are we going to get? Ultimately, I'm going to go with the more options here, and that is Tybura getting the submission in this one. Diniz just hasn't fought the opposition that have threatened him severely with takedown offense the way that Tybura is able to. He's just had more experience in there, the ability to get fighters to the ground and submit them. And being 7-1, he is going to be able to take someone out with no grappling experience. Now, obviously, this is a dangerous fight to pick because Diniz can easily go in there as heavyweights, 30 seconds in, absolutely take Tybura's head off. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt, but you've got to go with the fighter that just has way more experience in MMA, has the ground game arsenal, and has the stand-up game to somewhat compete as well. He's just got more tools. He could take this by a KO TKO, he could take this by a submission, or he could take this by a decision. Now, Diniz, he's only going to be getting a KO TKO here. Let's be honest here. So I'm going to be taking the guy with the more tools, with the more experience, and he is going to be getting that submission win, I believe, at the end of the first round. Moving up the card to David Onama versus Roberto Romero. So this is a very late addition to the card. But just like Elizeo and Zach Scroggin in the last fight night that we had, Prates and McGhee, it's just not going to be going well for Romero. I really doubt it. I don't think it's going to go as bad for him as it did with Zach Scroggin getting taken out pretty much immediately. But with this being a high risk, high reward fight, which we're seeing more and more recently, and credit to him, he's on short notice, he's giving David Onama that fight because he's had two opponents now fall through, and now he's actually getting to fight. So credit to Roberto Romero for seizing the opportunity, and he is a fairly decent fighter. I mean, he's come out of Combat Global. He has gone 7-1-1 there. He has very nice kickboxing, very, very good boxing in terms of hitting liver shots. Very nice lead lefts to the liver. He's got very good, he's actually got a clean head kick KO as well on his record. So he does have offensive KOs threats there. But just like Elizeo, Onama is just so much more experience. He's just fought way better opposition, and even though Romero is well rounded, so is Onama. He is just simply a better fighter everywhere. That's just it. I mean, it's just plain and simple. Now, obviously, the odds do reflect that as well. They're definitely subject to change because they were just released odds, so that will fluctuate pretty heavily, I do believe, leading up to the actual matchup itself. But I don't really see a point in riding with Romero here. David Onama, he's got the longer reach. He's the bigger fighter as well physically. He's got the KO power. His striking accuracy is good. And ultimately, I see him getting a KO TKO here. The problem is Roberto Romero is a very much like a forward pressure, overwhelming kind of fighter, and he never really takes a step back. And Onama is the type of fighter with that physical presence, with that power, with that wrestling threat to put Romero on the back foot. And if Romero gets put on the back foot against a guy that is stronger, that has more reach, that has the KO abilities, especially with his uppercuts and his twos as well, that he times extremely well off his jab, I just don't see an option for Roberto Romero to win this fight. I honestly do think David Onama will get this one done by KO TKO, probably in the second round. I think Roberto Romero will be able to stifle Onama in the first round, keep him at bay. Once Onama gets his reads, this fight is done. Now moving up the card to Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson, the veterans. We got the veteran matchup in New York. Jim Miller is very happy with this one, but I will say, probably don't bet on this one because these guys, honestly, there's avenues for both of them pretty much everywhere. And also we've got the difference of Damon Jackson coming up to lightweight, which he has not done since his LFA days in 2017. So it's been a very long time since it's come up, but I will say that it is the best option for Damon Jackson. He's 36 years old. Jim Miller's 41 now. And Jim Miller has the KO threat here. Don't get me wrong. Jim Miller could knock Damon Jackson's block off. It is Jim Miller's natural weight class overall, and he's just well attuned there. But Damon Jackson moving up to lightweight after, also when we look at recency as well, Damon Jackson has lost to far better opposition. Obviously Jim Miller lost to Bobby Green, but Damon Jackson has lost to guys like Elliott, Chepe Mariscal, and Dan Ige, all in prime period as well. And Damon Jackson has put up a fight against pretty much all of them to an extent, and Jim Miller got absolutely annihilated by Bobby Green. Now, Damon Jackson is not Bobby Green, nowhere near that on the feet. If this is staying on the feet completely, Jim Miller will probably KO him. I'm gonna be honest here, but Damon Jackson, very smart when it comes to the ground game. He's 15-1 on the ground. Very good transitionally, good with his wrestling. He's good at just being able to move faster than his opponents, be one step ahead. And Jim Miller is good on the ground, don't get me wrong, 20-3, but he's getting old, and especially transitionally on the ground. That's one of the things that goes the quickest, because you got to be fast in those scenarios. The best you can do is really be defensively sound more so, and just defend and just hold positions rather than really reverse positions. And Jim Miller, I think, is really just going to be struggling with that. Now, as I said, if one of them are getting finished, it's going to be Damon Jackson, but ultimately, I think that Damon Jackson is going to be able to get the decision win here. I think he's just going to do a bit better when it comes to taking advantage of those clinch exchanges, hunting for singles, hunting for doubles, because you do not want to be in clinch exchanges with Jim Miller. He's got the power there. But Damon Jackson, just being the quicker fighter, he's going to be rejuvenated at lightweight with his cardio. I think he's going to be able to push the pace a lot more, and I think that's going to frustrate Jim Miller. And I think Damon Jackson is just going to be able to take this one by unanimous decision, really based off control. And ultimately, look, it is hard to say. It is very difficult to say, but I just do think that Damon Jackson is going to be able to take this one by that decision. It could honestly be a split decision depending on how much Jim Miller is actually able to deal with his damage. But I think Jackson leading further and further into the fight, it's just more and more going to be his to take. Moving up the card to Chris Weidman versus Eryk Anders. Another one, probably more so. Don't bet on this, because this is a very tricky matchup. Both of them just getting on. They don't have like the best style of fight realistically to take advantage over the other more so. Very close fight. I wouldn't put Eryk Anders as that much of a favorite. I'd probably put this as a pick'em, to be honest.
But that being said, I am going to be going with Eryk Anders in this fight, and I don't think it's going to be that fun a fight. Obviously, we're getting this because Chris Weidman, he is a UFC veteran, just a former UFC champion, obviously just a staple, like Hall of Famer kind of fighter, being in New York, so it completely makes sense that this fight is being made. But I am happy that it is off the main card. I think it's good where it is right here in the prelims. And Chris Weidman, look, I'm going to say, like, if he gets a really good wrestling game just straight off the jump, he could win this fight. Don't get me wrong, he could win it, but I don't see him finishing Eryk Anders. Eryk Anders he's kind of just middle of the road with everything he does, but he is just better defensively than Weidman overall. And I think just utilizing a strong clinch game, utilizing that shots at range, just utilizing just like a slower pace, utilizing jabs, utilizing twos, and obviously being a bit younger as well and not taking the damage that Chris Weidman's taken as well. Obviously the leg injury, and Chris Weidman, since coming back from that, I just got to be honest, he has not looked great. He hasn't looked good at all. I mean, lost to Brad Tavares. The Bruno Silva fight was an absolute mess. And Eryk Anders, obviously he hasn't been that great himself, but I just think he has just more well-rounded tools at the moment, and I do think that he is going to be able to take this one by decision. I think it'll be pretty slow, but I think Eryk Anders is going to be the fresher fighter moving into those second and third rounds, and I think he could get the 29-28 here. I think benefit of the doubt, Weidman does have a good first round, utilize that heavy wrestling base that he does have, and really starts flinging out those leg kicks. I think that he's just got a point to prove with doing that. He did that against Bruno Silva, and I think he'll just do it again. But Eryk Anders moving into the second and third, fresher fighter, bit younger, and just a bit more well-rounded overall at this point in their careers. Got to take him by decision here. Moving up to a great fight, Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGhee. This is going to be interesting. This has huge implications for both of them because this could really push Martinez out of the rankings, and Marcus McGhee will put him in the rankings. And this guy, McGhee, is very fast, very powerful with his hands, with his kicks, very fast kicks especially, and also very, very good head movement. Very good head movement, very good hooks as well. And also, when he does fight, he actually does fight more so in southpaw. Obviously, orthodox is put on there because that is just what the stats say. But I do see a lot with him. His southpaw stance, very, very dangerous with the left hand. Very dangerous. Now, Jonathan Martinez, on the other hand, though, kind of a similar theme is the experience. I mean, Jonathan Martinez has fought better opposition. He's honestly he's hard to finish as well. Marcus McGhee is a finishing machine, but Martinez is very difficult to finish, and Martinez is a finisher himself. But I will say, Marcus McGhee in that first round, he needs to go absolutely apeshit because Martinez is a very slow starter, and Martinez really picks up in the second and third and onwards and really breaks down his opponents, especially with the leg kicks and then just drawing them out, utilizing wrestling and also utilizing that striking that he does have. He does have pretty good striking. Obviously, from his last fight, it doesn't seem so much because it was Jose Aldo, but the fact is it was Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is an elite striker in comparison to pretty much most of the roster. Now, the big issue that I do have here for McGhee is moving into those second and third rounds and just being able to maintain the pace from the first round. Obviously super dangerous in the first round, could take Jonathan Martinez out without a doubt, but if he gets his legs chopped down, if he gets his body shot as well, and if Martinez takes away that KO power, we don't know what Marcus McGhee really has. He's 1-1 with submissions. It's not that fantastic. But the key here as to why I'm taking Martinez by a decision win is the underrated wrestling game that he has. I think that he is going to be able to draw out McGhee late into the fight, take him down when he's a bit more tired. He's going to weather the storm, take him down, and he is going to position over submission the shit out of that. And I think he is going to draw out a decision win. This, even so, probably don't bet because Honestly, McGhee is just one of those fighters. He could come out and decapitate him without a doubt. But I'm going with the experience. I'm going with the more well-rounded game. I'm going with that underrated key wrestling game that he does have to draw out the fight. I think Martinez is going to get it done. Honestly, possibly depending on McGhee's damage, could be a split decision here. Could honestly be a split decision. But I'm going to go overall 29-28. Martinez winning round 2 and 3. Now moving on to the main card, Mauricio Ruffy versus James Llontop. Now, the odds are pretty clear here, and I'm not really going to be arguing against them. There is one thing that I'm going to argue against, which is going to be an unpopular opinion though. Now, before we get into that, we need to recognize James Llontop is a late replacement. He's coming into this fight on short notice, so we do have to keep that in account. Now, Ruffy, or Ruffy, however you want to say it, coming out of the Fighting Nerds, obviously the gym is just cracked. Like, all the fighters out of there are just freaks. Now he is one of the most entertaining fighters that we have seen just coming into the UFC as like a first fight. What he did to Jamie Mullarkey, absolutely flawless, just annihilated him. Very, very impressive. Now, Ruffy is a fighter that does have a fair few unknowns though, because 10-1 is his record, and 10-1 is his KO TKO record. We haven't really seen much of a ground game. We haven't seen what he's like realistically in later rounds consistently. And James Llontop, he's a guy that has a pretty shit ground game, don't get me wrong, pretty shit ground game, but he is durable, very durable. He is 7-0 with KOs. He's a good kickboxer. He is a good kickboxer. And I think that is being overshadowed heavily. Do I think that he's going to take out Ruffy on the feet? No, I don't think so. And I think, honestly, I think this is a great, perfect opportunity for Ruffy to realistically utilize his ground game as best as he can that we don't know about, but we get to actually see, because this is the best fight for him to showcase it. Llontop has no defensive real acumen on the ground, and he doesn't have an offensive one either, realistically. Now, Ruffy, we just don't know. I mean, he's just finished absolutely everyone and been finished once, but there's just been no need for the ground game. But it's with someone like Llontop, who is that durable, could we see Ruffy get it to the ground? And could he win by a submission? There is a possibility there. But with Ruffy being at MSG, being one of the favorites on this card, and he's going to get a shit ton of hype, I think that he is going to try and go for the finish when it comes to the feet. But I'm going to go with Llontop's durability coming through. But it's not going to be pretty at all. I think Llontop will survive to the bell. I think he will survive to the decision. And I think Ruffy is going to get a 30-26 decision in this fight. I think Ruffy I think he starts a little bit slower in the first round. Starts getting his reads, because he does recognize Llontop is probably arguably the best striker he's faced so far. And then going into the second round, once he gets his reads, he starts really showcasing off a bit more. I think that that's when he starts to pull away. I think he starts using a bit more of his ground game in the second round, just to really mix it up and keep Llontop guessing. But then the third round, I think with Llontop focusing on the fact that, okay, he's shot a takedown, I need to be wary of that. He lets his guard down a little bit, and Ruffy just tees off. I think that he just absolutely goes on a ridiculous striking masterclass in the third round and is inches away from finishing Llontop. But with that durability, keeping intact, I think Ruffy will get the 10-8 in that third round, and I think he will get the 30-26 decision in this one. Now moving up the card to Viviane Araújo versus Karine Silva. Now this matchup is in my fight outcomes that we have to see before 2025 video. If you haven't already seen that video, I'll leave it in the description below. But the reason why this matchup was in it is because we need to see Karine Silva not only win this fight, we need her to finish this fight, because she is one of the blueprints to having women's MMA be taken seriously. Because out of 18 wins, she's got 17 finishes. She is a finishing machine. She statistically has the highest finish rate out of women's MMA. at least in the UFC. She is seriously impressive, especially statistically, digging into those deeper fights. Like, obviously, it's not like a fighter that's 1-0 and they're 100%. She is literally ran through almost 20 opponents. Like, she is seriously impressive, and we need her in that top 5 range as soon as possible. Now, can she finish this fight? Araujo, she is a durable fighter. She's fought a lot of fighters in the UFC. I mean, a lot of good ones. Now, she is hard to finish. Pretty much the last 8 fights I think she's had have all been decision win or lose. And she's very durable. She's a forward pressure heavy fighter. She does like the wrestling a fair bit, and the striking isn't too bad. Her boxing isn't too bad. But I will say her head movement is pretty trash. Now, Karine Silva on the other side on the feet. She isn't the fastest fighter on the feet, but when she starts to get going, she's got good leg kicks inside and outside. She's got good head kicks as well, but also her check left hook is pretty vicious. She dropped Marina Moroz with that one. And look, Viviane Araujo, when she fights these opposition, that she obviously she's durable, don't get me wrong, but she's fighting a lot of fighters that don't have huge power threats, like Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa. I mean, she's fighting those kind of fighters. I mean, she fought Natalia Silva, and Natalia Silva couldn't finish her, so that's credit there. But Karine Silva, even in comparison to Natalia Silva, she is just a finishing freak. And honestly, I think she's getting it done by submission here. I seriously do. I think, especially with that check left hook, Araujo forward pressuring, she's just going to try keep it on the feet, pressure Karine Silva, and just try and use her hand speed. But the moment that Araujo gets countered with a check left, because she has bad head movement, I'm telling you, she is going to start hope shooting. And the moment she starts hope shooting, Karine Silva is in her world, because she will happily go to the ground. No matter if she's on her back or she's on top, she is just that vicious with submissions, especially through the UFC. She has finished a ridiculous amount of fights by submission. And Araujo, she's just not going to like the power that's coming from Karine Silva. Let's be honest here, there's just not a lot of outs for her. And we have seen when Araujo gets hurt, she does hope shoot. So I don't think that there's just going to be much difference in that this time around. And Karine Silva, I think she's going to lock up a pretty nice guillotine, probably in the late 2nd round or early 3rd round, and get this one done and fulfill that fight outcome. Now moving up the card to Paul Craig versus No Bickle. Bo Nickel. He is going to be able to get this one done. Let's just be honest here. Like, Paul Craig, love the dude, honestly. Stylistically, just funny. I mean, he's a very vicious submission artist off his back, as we all know, and his MMA-based submission game is very dangerous. Submitted Ankalaev at light heavyweight, has fought much better opposition than Bo Nickel has. But Paul Craig, his chin is gone. Let's be honest here. His chin is gone. He's aging. He has taken bad damage. I mean, Caio Borralho absolutely cleaned him up, and that chin is not getting any better from that point. And Bo Nickel, if he has any brain cells, yes, he is the credited wrestler. Don't get me wrong. He is very credited, very, very well accomplished. And even on the ground, he has fought guys like Gordon Ryan and whatnot in submission-based, obviously grappling tournaments and everything like that. But risking that fight at the MSG with the possibility of getting probably pushed up to the rankings after this fight, he's just not going to risk that. He is going to be hunting that 1st round KO TKO, and he is going to be getting that 1st round KO TKO. Let's just be honest here. I mean, Paul Craig, if he was honestly possibly even just before the Caio Borralho loss, there might be more of a chance for him and closing those odds a little bit. But just even the run that he's had at middleweight, along with the weight cut that he does have, cutting down, just really testing that chin in terms of his durability with a weight cut, along with just having a glass chin now against guys like KO, it's just not there. I mean, the only chance he does have, which was made pretty evident at the press conference, they both pretty much said it, Paul Craig has to have this on the ground, and he needs to submit him by a triangle. But is Bo Nickel going to get submitted by a triangle? No, unless he's an idiot and he goes to the ground. That's basically it. If he keeps it on the feet, Bo Nickel will KO Paul Craig. And I think that is what he's going to do, because I think he has brain cells and he's going to get it done in the first round. Nice 1-2. Paul Craig probably going to swing back. Bow neck hook going to sway. Bang. Check hook. Craig on the ground, and then just ground and pounds him out. I think that is honestly just how the fight's going to go. Moving up to the co-main event, Charles do Bronx Oliveira versus Iron Michael Chandler. Now this is just got certified fireworks, chaos, absolute carnage written all over it. And this being 5 rounds, it makes me want to cry, because I do not want to see either of these guys lose. I love both of them. Charles is obviously just he had such a fantastic championship run. Michael Chandler has not had a boring fight in his whole entire fucking existence. And these guys just have such great finishing threats. And it really sucks. I love them both, but one of them, let's be honest here, if this is going to a decision, what the hell? That's just ridiculous. But let's be honest here, it's going to get finished, and it's probably going to get finished pretty quick. Now, Michael Chandler, we know him, very, very dangerous in the early rounds. He is the only guy that certifiably can say, I see red, and it actually is a problem. Because when Chandler sees red, he takes Tony Ferguson's head off. We know how dangerous Michael Chandler is in those early rounds. What he did to Dan Hooker as well. I mean, he hurt Dustin Poirier in that first round of their fight as well. Even hurt Gaethje. He is extremely dangerous. Almost floored Charles in their first fight. Was 2 hits away from taking Charles out. We got to remember that. But also the fact of the matter is, Michael Chandler has had 2 years off because Conor McGregor absolutely fucked him over, fucked him around. And he's 38. He's 38 now. I mean, he is explosive. He has a body sculpted from God, but there's only so much that that body can take. You gotta be honest here. I mean, Chandler has been through wars, absolute wars, and that is going to be catching up with him, and I do think so in this fight. Charles Oliveira, obviously, in that first round, I'm more scared of him getting taken out over Michael Chandler. Charles is a guy that, honestly, he needs to just be careful in that first round, which he probably won't be. He'll probably just go absolutely nuts and just make it an absolute barn burner, which is fine with me, but ultimately, if he's going to really want to make sure he secures this fight, he really gets his reads throughout that first round and really starts piecing together that Muay Thai, especially investing in Michael Chandler's body with the teeps and making sure if it gets into a close range, just utilizing the hooks to the liver, just slowing Chandler down. Because if Chandler gets slowed down, Charles will finish him. Without a doubt, he will finish him. And honestly, Charles being 35, obviously I can't believe he's 35 now, that's so sad, but he's obviously 35 in comparison to Chandler. He's 3 years younger. He's been more active. He's fought top flight competition. He still looked fantastic. He chinned Beneil Dariush. He almost beat Arman Sarukian as well, almost finished him in the first round too. I mean, Charles, he's the bigger, obviously, just stature threat as well. He's taller, he's got the reach, and we know he has got the power. He took out Chandler in their last fight, and honestly, I think he's going to be able to take him out again, but it's going to be by a submission. I think towards the middle or the end of that second round, Charles is going to hurt Chandler bad. Very similar. I think he's going to catch him with one of the cleanest left hooks I've ever bloody seen. Catch him, drop Chandler, and then Charles, as we know, transitionally. I think Charles is going to do what he did to Justin Gaethje in that first round. I think that is what he is going to do to Michael Chandler in the second round of this fight, to then get a rematch with Islam Makhachev once and for all. Now, moving up to the retirement party, we have got Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. I mean, this could go a lot of different ways, so it is hard to choose specifics for this one. And I'm going to say off the bat, I do think that Stipe is being heavily counted out in this fight. I mean, yes, he's 42. Last time he fought, he got killed by Francis Ngannou. But you can't forget, this guy is a natural heavyweight. He is a big fighter. He is not scared. I think Cyril Gane got a bit of stage fright in the fight against Jon Jones. I think he let the moment get to him. Stipe, I just don't see that happening to him. He's just too war-ridden. He's just too much of a veteran. Now, does that mean he can win the fight? Possibly, but let's be honest here. Jon Jones, he is honestly, he is arguably the GOAT, but his finishing threats, his finishing capabilities, and honestly, the speed translation for him is the biggest thing I'm concerned about in comparison to even Stipe Miocic at 42 years old. But just the ways Jon Jones is physically looking now, literally in comparison from the Cyril Gane fight to now, he is looking a lot better. Juicing, possibly, who knows? USADA's gone, but look, ultimately he's just looking better. I mean, he's younger overall. He's just got the best momentum of all time. And Jones, I honestly do think, with Stipe's chin being that weathered, I do think that he is going to be able to drop Stipe. I think the first round will definitely be a feel out round. Usually is with Jon Jones, unless Stipe just absolutely bum rushes him. There is that possibility there, but Jon Jones is freakishly strong, especially looking at his fights with like Chael Sonnen. I mean, looking at Rashad Evans as well, the fights that he had there, he was just so much stronger. But moving up to heavyweight and the way he's looking now, I think that there is definitely a strong chance he could outmuscle Stipe. I mean, Jon Jones is a fantastic wrestler that can cancel out Stipe's as well. Stipe's best chance is to find that Hail Mary knockout punch, and we know he's got the power without a doubt. But Jon Jones, I do think that he's going to be able to knock Stipe down or against the cage in the second round. I do think that he starts really just pushing those teeps into the body of Stipe. I think he just cuts down his body, cuts down his legs, using those oblique kicks to his legs as well, just cutting Stipe down in that first round. Moving into the second round, slows him down to the point where Jones is just teeing off. That power generation through moving up to heavyweight and really filling out there. I think he hurts Stipe pretty bad against the cage. And then I honestly do think it's a tricky call, because I feel like Jones in that heat of the moment will probably chin Miocic, but I'm gonna say that it's gonna be a double submission between co-main and the main event. I think that he does submit Stipe, turning his back with a rear naked choke finish in that second round to get that win. And let's be honest here, he will retire. He is not fighting Tom Aspinall. I mean, I know there's all the duck comments going around and everything like that, and Jon Jones, arguably, honestly, as a heavyweight champion, he should fight Tom Aspinall. But at the same time, I mean, he has like 17 odd title defenses. He's gone through generation after generation. It's really up to him if he retires, and he probably will. And I mean, he's the one that can do anything about that. I mean, he doesn't care what anyone else says. And we obviously know Dana's put his foot down now and said, if whoever wins this has to fight Tom Aspinall, which is, there's no other option. Tom Aspinall has to fight for the title, or just get the title after this one, which is most likely what will happen. I think Tom Aspinall will just auto-unify the belt for himself, and then he will just fight as the heavyweight champion from there. So yeah, I do think Jon Jones and Stipe will retire, probably, honestly, regardless of the outcome. But man, I'm hoping for Stipe in this matchup. Now, moving on to the Fight Card Awards, kicking it off with Fight of the Night, we have Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. Do we need to say anything? This will be an absolute barn burner from start to finish. These guys just know one speed, and that is just kill. It's just kill speed. These guys will just go after each other from the start, and it is going to be an amazing fight to watch. I hope that I get it wrong, and I really hope that this goes to a decision, because I do not want either of these guys getting chinned. But regardless, it will be an amazing fight. Now, performance of the night, got to give it to Bo Nickel. Golden opportunity on the feet with the striking that he does have, and he does have the KO power in combination with how dusty Paul Craig's chin is now. I just don't see that there's going to be any other option than first round KO, TKO, or possibly an early second round for him. And moving on to fighter to watch, I've got to give it to the fighting nerd's absolute beast, Mauricio Ruffy. This guy, along with that whole gym, said it a million times, they are so ridiculously entertaining, every single one of them. Mauricio Ruffy, Conor McGregor-esque bladed style striking, very impressive against Jamie Mullarkey, and ultimately I think that's just really going to showcase his skills honestly, if it goes to a decision, at least we get 15 minutes of an absolute masterclass, which he will give us. Now, finish of the night, gotta give it to Jon Jones. Ultimately, he is the one that is going to be able to finish this fight. I do honestly believe he will get that submission. Could be a KO TKO there. I'd be looking at a Jon Jones outright for just a finish there, KO TKO or submission in my betting slip at least. But yeah, I just don't really see much of a chance for Stipe in this one. Granted, if he gets a KO in this, I will go absolutely insane, because that means that Jon Jones will honestly, there's a huge possibility he could come back, redeem himself. I mean, if he fights Stipe again, they'll have to pay Stipe a shit ton of money to give Jon Jones a rematch. And then Jon Jones, or ultimately, if Stipe doesn't come back, he might have to fight Tom Aspinall after all, which let's bloody hope so. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you want to see more MMA based content, definitely check out the video on the screen. And thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate all the comments you guys leave and interacting with you guys. And please like, comment some more, and definitely subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.